Let's talk. We're going to leave this in frame for just a minute more because this is part of what I want to talk about today. Recently at Seth's 12th night, which was happened right around the first weekend in January, actually. My wife and I had a chance to go down. She's been to several of them. I haven't been to one in forever, so it was a really great opportunity for me to go down and see people down in the steps area. A lot of people I haven't talked to in ages, and I'm really glad I got a chance to talk with them there. But what I want to talk about is what happened in the middle of the day. Feast at that event was a lunchtime feast. And part of any Anstioran feast, I don't know about other kingdoms, and if your kingdom has something like this, comment down below. But part of our kingdom's tradition are toasts during the feast. And I want to talk a little bit about what those traditions are, where they come from, what they're based around, a little bit of the changes that have happened, and kind of where we are now. If for no other reason than the fact it's part of our kingdom heritage, it's part of our kingdom tradition and history, and it's something that I feel new players in Anstior and even seasoned players outside of the kingdom might find interesting and useful. Now, I started playing in fall of '97, and there were toasts at the first feast I ever attended, and there have been toasts at every feast since then. It's one of the staples of the Anstioran feast, and I know there are other kingdoms that do it. Now, our tradition is that the senior-most member of the chivalry will stand up during the feast, call for everyone. He'll raise his glass, he'll call for everyone's attention, and he will issue a brief toast to the sovereign, usually the king. And you'll say to the king, and everyone will raise their glass from their seat and go to the king. And then if I remember correctly, it's the senior most squire will issue a similar toast to the consort or queen. And now when I started playing, the next salute was usually the senior most Don would salute the prince if we had heirs at that time, and the senior most cadet would salute the princess or consort if we had heirs at that time. And then the other traditional salutes, which kind of fell into a fuzzy pecking order of importance in politics and who was feeling up to toasting that night, you would traditionally toast the nobility of the hosting barony, if it was a barony, or you would just toast the local group. And one that I was rather fond of, that I did a lot as a much younger player, when I made it to more feasts. When all that was done, I would stand up and I would hold my glass up and I'd go, let us toast the servers who give of their time to bring us this meal. And that would, that would usually round it out, kind of a pecking order, as it were, in rank. Now, things have changed a lot since my early days in the society. One of the first big changes in that was the creation of the Masters of Defense, the Order of Defense, the Rapier Peerage. In our kingdom, the highest ranking rapier fighter in the area, at the feast, would do the salutes for the heirs. Well, or for the heir. And with the establishment of the Order of Defense, that created the question of, okay, is it now the senior most Don, or is it the senior most Master of Defense? And then there was that led to the question of, okay, and who salutes the heir consort? Is it the cadet, or is it the the student for the master of defense. And whoever, I don't want to say whoever won that fight, because that's putting it is too much of a conflict, but keep in mind that once that tradition's set, whoever's not doing the salutes is now left with, okay, who do they salute, or are they just kind of kicked out? Fast forward a bunch of years, and now we have the creation of the Principality of Windheim. And Windheim it has its own royals. The territorial royalty, prince and princess usually, over the principality. Who is going to salute them? Who handles their salutes? And I haven't been to as many feasts as I really would have liked to, but that, I think that fell to the Dawn and Cadet. So it was the King and Queen were by the knight and the seniormost knight, seniormost squire, and then the heirs, the prince and princess, would go to the master of defense and seniormost student. And then the territorial prince and territorial princess would be handled by the Dawn and Cadet. And then the remaining toasts would be handled by other members of the populace in attendance, but it is appropriate to toast the nobles over the barony that's hosting the event. If it's not a barony, then to toast the group itself. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes you toast the nobles, and then you toast the group. And then sometimes there are sundry toasts beyond that. You will toast the servers. I have been to some larger feasts where, 7 or 8 removes a lot of food, where you'll also toast the cooks. Though, to be fair, that's kind of gone by the wayside. We don't do so many salutes for the cooks right now, but we will traditionally do a big thank you in court, usually right after feast. Generally speaking, on Steora, feasts tend to be, it goes feast, then court. Not all events that way, but I'll say the vast majority of them are. Now, if you're keeping track, King, Queen, sometimes you can just salute the kingdom. Heirs, Prince, Princess. Territorial Prince and Princess. The territory, Windheim. The nobles. Maybe even the barony. And then the servers, that's 12 salutes. Does that sound like a lot? Yes, it is. Can it turn into a bit of a monotonous 5 minutes where you can't say anything and you're kind of stuck at your seat every couple of minutes, raising your glass up, going to the... Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. It's one of those traditions that it can go either way. And that is something that does happen. Sometimes does get a bit monotonous. But there are also times where it is handled really well and it doesn't bog down the feast, doesn't bring everything to a grinding halt for 5 or 6 or 10 minutes. And I'm just going to kind of leave you with a couple of the highlights of the better organized toasts that I have seen in my time. First of all, they are planned out. They're not spontaneous. You don't leave people wondering who's doing the toasts. They are laid out and they are planned, and there's usually a footnote with each person to keep it brief. Like, a minute is too long. 30 seconds is too long. This needs to be 5, maybe 10 seconds at the most of you talking, followed by everyone doing the toast, and then you sit down and we move on. I have seen a lot of feasts where they spread the toast out, like there are 2 salutes or 2 toasts every remove. With larger feasts, that works really well because it's very brief and it spreads things out. I've also seen it done really, really well where they The senior-most knight will start things right at the beginning of the feast, and everyone will sit there for maybe 2 to 3 minutes at the most, and it's really snappy, it's really quick. Some of the better wordsmiths will be able to squeeze in some really rousing words in there, 5 or 10 seconds, and it just get out of the way early on, and the feast can move on organically, and we have music playing, and we have servers going, and it's a really nice pace. I've seen both of those work. I've also seen both of those train wreck, and I will use that phrase unapologetically. Keep in mind that the etiquette of the toast requires everyone to remain silent, and for feast serving to stop, and the musicians to stop playing while it's taking place. So, having someone who takes 15 to 20 seconds to say their bit, that really slows things down. It can really push some buttons that we don't want to push. Lack of projection sometimes can be a problem. It's not a huge issue. Usually one person, giving 2 sentences, there's enough gumpture to belt it out, but sometimes it just doesn't happen, and I know that can be annoying for those of us at the tables, either waiting to get back to eating, or waiting to get back to our conversation, or waiting to do our toast if we're one of the people who's been tapped. And there's definitely a little bit of reading the room involved. There is definitely a little bit of, do you understand your audience? Do you have enough of their attention, enough engagement to buy yourself that extra 5 or 10 seconds? Or do you, are they just sitting there chomping at the bit for you to shut up and do your salute? There are times you have to read that. I wish I could be more detailed about it, but we're not going to fit that into a video. Not here. Your local area may have its own traditions, and there may be times where people would prefer not to be toasted. I know that I have seen certain servers and certain groups. Like I was at an event one time where the Baron, the Baroness, and the Seneschal all pulled the senior-most knight aside and said, "Do not toast us right now." And it wasn't that they didn't want the attention; it was that things were busy, people were tired, and they wanted to keep toast brief, so it was their protocol to go, look, just skip us, do the king, do the queen, and do the barony, and call it a day. Do the king, queen, austere, and barony, 4, call it a day. And that went really well. But at the other end of it, I do remember one person who picked up his glass, stood up, and frankly made a bardic performance out of it. He was standing for 7.5 minutes, and the hall was kind of held prisoner to him. I wish I could be kinder about it, but it was just an uncomfortable So I wish I could leave this on a high note. I don't want to leave it on a low note. When done right, salutes are, first of all, they're period. We know that they took place historically. We have them written down at times. There were people who were well regarded as phenomenal wordsmiths who would could speak very briefly and could still, raise the spirits of the hall. So the toast is a little bit of politics, a little bit of presentation, and a lot of tradition. It's something that we really do hold ourselves to doing, and we want to keep doing it as much and as often as we can with, at every feast. But it also is a chance to remind people of a little bit of why we're here, of those who inspire us, of those who lead us. And it's also an excellent opportunity for younger players to both witness a little bit of ceremony and tradition, and also, if the opportunity presents itself, for you to be part of it. Some of those salutes, I mentioned, they don't have a pre-designated person. So maybe you are the one saluting the kingdom, or maybe you are the one saluting the barony or the baron or the baroness. Those are all options. But that is what's going on. If you go to feasts and you hear all these salutes and these toasts going on, that is what that is. And I'm hoping that this kind of lays the groundwork for you to better understand what's going on and where they come from and how things might change in the future. I thank you very much for joining me. A toast to you. I will see you at the next event, but until then, goodbye and God bless. If there are two things I've learned that drive videos these days, it's controversy and engagement. Now, I am never going to fly the controversy flag on a regular basis. It's not what I'm here for. It's not the content I want to make, and I really don't think it helps any of us. But let's do engagement. If you like this video, please go down in the comments and leave a comment. Make sure to share the video. And last but not least, easiest of all, make sure to like the video. That helps drive the algorithm. It helps get the video views and helps promote this material. Thank you very much.